Hey everyone, welcome back to the VMworld Tech Talks powered by V Brown Bag. With us this time we have Scott Lowe. I think most of the community knows you, so no introduction necessary. Scott, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. All right. Well, I hope everyone's doing well. Appreciate the opportunity to get up here and talk real quick. I'm going to try and make my 9 minutes worthwhile. So I was having an interesting conversation on Twitter with somebody earlier. I'm a big proponent of inbox zero. So if you guys know what that is, it's this movement to keep your inbox empty, right? So I did an informal survey of a few folks out there, and I ranged in numbers from 7,000 email messages in their inbox to several hundred emails in their inbox, down to a few tens, and the winner of the small sample that I interviewed was somebody who had 5 emails in their inbox, right? And email is one of these things that everybody talks about having problems managing. You know, how do I keep up on my email? I just can't keep track of what's going on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, well, this isn't necessarily virtualization related, but maybe we could just take 10 minutes and talk about some thoughts and some ideas and maybe some tips and tricks for managing information. So, real unstructured. We'll just kind of maybe do a stream of consciousness type thing here, right? Share some of my thoughts and maybe some things that shaped my own processes. So one of the things I like to think about when it comes to managing information, and one thing's been helpful for me, is actually dividing the tools that you use for managing information into 3 different layers or 3 different categories. So you have something like a consumption layer or a consumption category. These would be the tools or the applications or the sources of information that bring you information. So think of these as like all your RSS feeds, your email inbox. If you on mailing lists, obviously that'll come into your inbox. If you use news groups or forums or anything of that nature, these are all the tools or the sources that are dumping information into your realm, your sphere, right? And so you want to look at tools and applications that help you manage that. So if you want to keep up with a lot of different websites rather than spending time going out and visiting the websites, you need to look at an RSS reader, and then that will help you gather all that information. You want to look at tools that maybe integrate that with your email. So Outlook gives you the ability to look at RSS feeds right inside Outlook. You can use one tool to get access to your email and to your RSS feeds. That might be something you want to think about. But the other parts of this, well, a lot of times we'll think about the consumption layer, so we'll think about what browser we're using, what RSS reader we're using, what news group reader we're using, what IRC client we're using, whatever. But sometimes we don't think about the other tools in our portfolio as well. So we have to have tools in the organization layer, right? And I'll delve into this in more detail in just a moment with some suggestions of some tools you might find useful. But I want you to think about tools that help you organize the information, right? How do you keep track of the information that's being dumped at you through these consumption layer tools, right? How do you keep track of your email? Are you somebody who dumps it all into one big folder and then searches it? Are you somebody who puts it into categories, right? Both of these approaches are valid. But you have to think about how do you keep track of your tasks, things that are assigned to you, right? Do you have a to-do system? Do you have a task management system? And how do you interact between that task management system and the tools that dump information into here, right? Then we also have what I call the creation layer. And these are the tools that you use to create content that other people are going to consume. So a lot of us in here are bloggers. We have our blogging tools, whether it's the web-based UI or whether it's the an offline blogging client, Windows Live Writer, Mars Edit, Ecto, take your pick, right? Whatever. One of the things that I think, me personally, I think is very, very useful is each of these layers has some boundaries between them, right? So moving information from consumption to organization and organization to creation, anything you can do to streamline the movement of information between these layers is going to make you more effective. So any sort of scripting tools, keyboard shortcuts, hotkey tools that'll help you quickly take an email message, make it an action in your to-do list, and then you don't have to track it in email anymore. It's right there in your task manager, right? Or taking tasks and putting notes and stuff in that task management system and being able to quickly say, here's spit that out, and it becomes a template blog post that you can then fill out and finish and publish, right? So eliminating the friction or eliminating the boundaries between these layers might be helpful. So a couple tools that I have found useful, and I've tried to include some. I'm a Mac guy, in case you didn't guess, right? But I tried to find some non-Mac tools here as well. I highly recommend everybody get and use some sort of task management system. I use OmniFocus, which is a getting things done GTD type system, right? It's a Mac-only tool, but they have iPad and iPhone pieces. There's lots of other tools. If you're a web-based kind of person, you like web-based apps, Remember the Milk, or RTM, has also some iOS clients, and it's highly regarded. And there are tasks inside Outlook. If you're an Outlook kind of person, I know a lot of people live in Outlook, right? So you can always use that function inside Outlook. But that use of the task management system, I think, is really, really critical, because so many times, and not that there's anything wrong with this necessarily, but if you want to be inbox zero, if you want to have an empty inbox, right, you can't use your inbox as your task management system. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that, and that's fine. If you're going to use your inbox as your task management system, then just recognize you're never going to be at zero, because you always have something to do, or at least I do. I don't know about you guys, right? I always have something I have to do. So find yourself some sort of system, right? And then, because this sits in the organization layer, think about how you can make it easy to get stuff from your consumption layer. Watch out for that step. Find out how you can make it easy to get stuff from your consumption layer into the organization layer, right? So find some scripts or some tools or keyboard shortcuts or whatever it is, whatever process procedure works for you, to make it really, really easy to get information out of the consumption layer into the organization layer, so then it can be organized with everything else, right? And then similarly, you want to eliminate friction between the organization layer and the creation layer. So once you've got that information in there, then you want to look at, how do I get it out of there into a blog post or into a Word document or into a white paper or a tweet or whatever it is that you are generating for other people to consume. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I recommend people use is this idea of something called an anything or an everything bucket, right? So there's lots of these. Evernote is very, very common, and if I were to ask for a show of hands, I'd probably see a lot of people using Evernote, because you can dump graphics in there, you can dump text in there, it'll sync up to their site and then synchronize down to your iPad or your iPhone or another system or whatever it is, right? Lots of other tools, some Mac-specific tools, Yojimbo, Eagle Filer. I've heard people from Windows, they love to use Microsoft OneNote as this piece, and the idea here is that you got lots of information coming in the consumption layer, lots of articles and emails and all that kind of stuff, and maybe you know that you need that information later, but you don't know quite what to do with it, right? Well, you don't want to store it in your inbox, because again, the whole idea is we want to keep our inbox empty so that we can be effective, right? So you want to have someplace you can dump it, and that's your anything/everything bucket, right? And again, because this is an organization layer tool, you want to make it really, really easy to get stuff from the consumption layer into this organization layer, into this bucket. So ways that you can quickly capture a web page and drop it into this thing, or quickly capture a document or some text, copy and paste it into here to create a note. So it's available for you later on, and then later on you can come back, pull it out of your organization layer, your bucket, and then do something with it, right? Send it in an email to your boss, distribute it to a distribution list, write a blog post, write a white paper, put it in a book, whatever, okay? So a couple different things of looking at that. And if you kind of apply this process of looking at these tools and layers and how we move data between the layers, then you can start to find the best tool that works for you in each of these layers to help you more effectively have a real efficient information workflow here, right? So using those kind of concepts real quick, I wanted to share with you some tricks for managing email. If your goal, and it was the goal of this gentleman I was communicating on Twitter with earlier today, if it is your goal to have an empty inbox, right? How can you get there? I've got 7,000 emails in my inbox today. How do I get there? Contrary to popular belief, Control-A, delete is not the right way to do it, okay? I know we have people over here on the side saying, yes, that's my approach, right? Maybe it might work for you. For me, I'd probably end up missing something that I had to do, and then I'd be in trouble. But here's a process. If you apply this 4-step process to every message that comes in your inbox, then over time, once you deal with what you have dragging in, the 7,000 messages you're pulling in, over time you'll get to a point where your inbox is under control, right? You're not going to feel like you're being overwhelmed by email. So you basically apply these 4 rules to every message that comes in. First of all, if the message is something you can do quickly, I can type out a quick reply, or it's an action that I can perform. It's somebody needs me to grit this document and send it to somebody else, or somebody needs me to call somebody, whatever it is. If it's something you can do really, really quickly, then just go ahead and do it. And then when it's done, archive the message or delete it. All right, how do we know whether we archive or delete it? Does the message have information you might need later? Yes, archive it. Stick it in a folder, whatever your folder system is, it doesn't matter. All right? So archive the message. If it doesn't have information you need later, right, there's no need to keep it. Get rid of it. Delete it. All right? So if it's something you can do quickly, do that thing, then delete or archive the message. If it's something that's going to take a longer amount of time, right, it's a more complicated task, you have to write a document, you have to call several different people and wait on their responses, whatever the case may be, right? The reply is going to take a little more time to compose because you got to think about it, do some research. And then create an action or a task in your task management system, right? And then archive or delete the message because You don't need it anymore. You now don't need that message to track what it was you were supposed to do. You now have this action over here that tells you that's what you're supposed to do. Archive the message. Archive the message if it has information you need to get that task done. Otherwise, you don't need it anymore. You've already captured what it is you've been asked to do. Delete the message. Okay? Third thing is, if it contains information, it's not actionable. I mean, it's not something that I need to do, but it contains information that you need, then archive it. Okay? Again, whatever archiving strategy you want to use doesn't matter, but find something that makes archiving really, really easy. Like on my Mac, I have a tool for keyboard shortcuts, and I have a keyboard shortcut defined that I can just push, and it takes the current message and files it in a folder. So it doesn't matter if I have that, just push keyboard shortcut, bam, message is filed away in a folder. Probably do the same thing in Outlook or another email client. But just make it easy. Make it easy, because if it's hard, you're going to mentally rebel against the system. If you make it easy, then the friction against it is lessened, and it'll make it more likely that you're going to adopt this as part of your workflow. The last one is really, really important, okay? If the message isn't an action that you can do quickly and can just get it done, and it's not an action that takes more time, and therefore you have to create an action so you can track it, and it's not information that you might not need later, then just delete it. Right? There's no need to hang on to it, right? If it's not something for you, if you don't need to do something with it, if you don't need the information later, then just delete it. If you think you might need the information later, fine, archive it, all right? It doesn't matter. Just store it in a folder somewhere. You can always get back to it later. All the new clients have great search functionality to make it possible to find what you're looking for. And there's tagging and other meta information that can be attached to messages that might help that as well, okay? So I hope this information's been helpful to you guys. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott. Now, I have to say, a good point. You mentioned rules and alerts and all.
Yep.
There is a rule that you can put in Outlook that'll send it straight to the deleted box.
Okay, well,
I do that with a lot of, maybe I shouldn't say that.
You probably shouldn't say that. You put your manager's name in that
Well,
folder.
actually, my manager learned that I also have a rule that when I get something from him, it throws up a big alert, so I don't miss those.
Okay, that's good. That's important.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
All right,
We really
thank you.
appreciate it. All right, everybody. We'll have a really quick break. We're going to switch over to our next presenter, so stay tuned.